Have you ever seen one of those infomercials that sell you household products for a small monthly installment? A self-folding garden hose? A hardcore bathroom scrubber? Miracle hair restoration? You know the type. I bet you can hear the tagline now. All this can be yours for just 3 small payments of $19.99. But do you have any idea of the kinds of things you can buy for just a few small payments from the right infomercial? I'll bet you have never considered purchasing a mail-order bride from a TV commercial. Well, guess what? Build-A-Girl offers just that service for just a few short payments of $39.95. Need an organ transplant but can't wait years on the waiting list? Harvest Life LLC has got you covered. And all of that is great and all, but what I just bought is simply phenomenal. I bought my life for, you guessed it, 3 little payments of $19.99. I could hardly believe my ears when the pitchman started selling me late one night in mid-March. It was around 2 a.m., and I hadn't been able to sleep, tossing and turning and whatnot. So, I decided to get out of bed and put on the TV. There's not really a whole lot on at that late hour, so I just sorta sat there like a zombie for a bit until the boring movie I'd been vaguely watching glitched out, and the enthusiastic voice of a veteran pitchman intermittently cut into my speakers and screen. Are you tired of your boring, humdrum existence? Are you disappointed with how things have turned out? Do you wish you could go back and do it all over again? Well, today, I bring you life-changing news. I sat up in my chair, a little straighter, and rubbed my eyes because, frankly, I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing. What kind of commercial was this? The TV screen came into sharper focus then, and I saw a handsome, muscular man lounging in a swimming pool. Some absolutely gorgeous woman literally hanging off of his arm. My eyes widened a bit as even this obviously staged setup put envy into my bones. I had never been a particularly handsome man, you see. I was a bit overweight, though not that much. My hairline was receding and I hadn't been on a date with a woman since high school. At the age of 38, you could say I was a bit disappointed with the cards I'd been dealt in my life. It was as if Mr. Pitchman had read my mind. If you have been disappointed by the cards life has dealt you, fear not. Happy Endings, a trading corporation, has a solution to change your hand and stack the deck entirely in your favor. I listened intently with mounting curiosity as the pitchman, who never actually appeared on camera, explained how Happy Endings had developed a revolutionary system for giving a fresh start to guys like me who just didn't seem to have any luck in life. I listened intently with mounting curiosity as the pitchman, who never actually appeared on camera, explained how Happy Endings had developed a revolutionary system for giving a fresh start to guys like me who just didn't seem to have any luck in life. Through the power of their 4-step process, Happy Endings promised to 1. Match me with an ideal lifestyle. 2. Rebrand my image. 3. Locate a compatible partner. And 4. Give me a new life. All just for 3 installments of $19.99. I watched enviously as the handsome men with gorgeous wives and happy kids gave their testimonials, explaining how they used to be unhappy just like me. They were too fat, too skinny, ugly, out of shape, awkward, and anxious schlubs until Happy Endings made them the offer of their lifetime by actually giving them a new life. Now, they were handsome, fit, had families, and were the envy of all their friends. This could be you for just $19.99. There was no telephone number I could call. Instead, the pitchman directed me to my computer, where he sent me to a website with instructions for entering the dark web. I had to go through a lengthy process filling out health forms, consent to what was described as a minor medical procedure, buy $60 in Bitcoin, and make my payments that way. I also had to fill out an incredibly detailed questionnaire asking for me to describe my ideal height, weight, hair color, eye color, and hairstyle, as well as those same ideal quantities in a female partner. At that point, I'll admit, I was a little skeptical, but I was so blown away by the advertisement and so overcome with desire for a new life that I answered everything anyways. Once everything was finally filled out, I hit the green submit button and was told a confirmation email would be sent to me shortly. I never did get to sleep that night. I was too wound up by the possibilities that had been opened up to me. I did eventually get that confirmation email. Happy Endings set up an appointment with me to travel to their headquarters in Colorado, where I would be medically evaluated and, if cleared, would set up for another appointment for my procedure. I'm happy to say I passed the medical test and the procedure was a success. Although, if I'm honest with you, I'll admit that they were a little bit misleading. The procedure was anything but minor, and I had to sign so many contracts and non-disclosure agreements that I thought my hand would fall off. But today, I stand before you, well, you know what I mean, as a new man. They added 6 inches to my height. My body has never been more fit, and, would you believe it, they actually managed to give me every one of my physical traits I'd named as my ideal. I don't even recognize myself. And you should see my wife. She's the most beautiful creature I've ever laid eyes on. Everything about her, from head to toe, is exactly as I specified. I even put that I didn't want a woman who was too smart because I didn't want to feel inferior to her, and you know, they actually managed that as well. I had to wait a little longer than usual for my wife to be ready, because brain surgeries take longer than the usual modifications. Apparently, the woman who is now my wife used to be a bit of a brainiac back in the day, but now she's just smart enough to do what I want. She cooks and cleans like a professional. She laughs at all my jokes, and just generally makes me feel like a god. I can't wait to get to work on making one of those kids. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to Happy Endings Corporation for fulfilling their promise to give me a new life. And I want to thank the man who volunteered to switch places with me as well. It takes a selfless person to give up all of this, to go and live the miserable life I used to have. I just wish Happy Endings had let me meet him in person before the procedure, but they said he was unable to be seen. They said that it tends to have detrimental effect on the experience. Oh, and of course, to anyone reading this, if you are unhappy with the cards you've been dealt in life, if you're ready to make that change that you deserve, feel free to send me a private message, and I'd be happy to put you in contact with the Happy Endings Corp. You can literally change your life for just 3 small payments of $19.99. I'm a nurse, and I currently work nights. It's a drag, but I'm hopeful I can go to days soon, since some coworkers are planning retirements. Anyways, I was working one night when just after 3 a.m. my son's monitor alerted me to the sound of movement. No big deal at all. He probably coughed loudly or sneezed or something. He's 3 now, so he generally sleeps all night. I bring it up on my phone and I see him and my wife sitting on the bed. Again, no big deal. He might have cried out or gotten scared or something. I was about to close the app when I noticed they were acting strange. Almost creepy. And when I say almost creepy, I mean creepy as hell. They were sitting on the bed together, both of them just staring up at the camera with blank, emotionless stares. The night vision is black and white, so they had white, eerie looking eyes. They didn't move at all aside from their visible breathing. They just sat there, staring at the camera. I closed the app and give my wife a call to make sure everything is okay. I never get to call home on lunch, so in a way, this is kind of nice to get to talk to my family while at work. It rings a couple of times before she answers with a very groggy, "Hello." It was like she was dead asleep when I called and she looked wide awake, went on the camera. "Hey, you guys okay?" "Huh? Yeah. Buddy came in like 15 minutes ago. Seemed scared, so I said he could sleep with Mama." I'm confused, since I saw them in his room a minute ago. Literally 60 seconds had passed since I closed the app and made the call. Wait, so you guys are in bed? Yeah, I fell right back asleep. Everything okay? Everybody keeps waking me up. She's kind of annoyed at this point. Hang on a sec. I put her on speaker and bring up the app, hoping I don't see it. When the app loads, I get the pang of intense nervousness in my stomach that I haven't had in a long time. Since I was a kid in school and realized while I was eating breakfast, a paper or something was due that day and I hadn't done it, my heart leaps into my throat. My wife and son are sitting on his bed looking up at the camera. Same emotionless stares. "Hello? You guys are in bed, right?" "Yeah, we're trying to sleep." "Well, I'm looking at his camera and I see you two sitting on his bed." "No, we're in bed." "I know that's what you mean, but I'm looking at his bed and you two are in there." "Hang on," she says. She's quiet for a second while she brings up the camera on her phone. I hear this guttural, terrified gasp, like she had sucked all the air in the room into her lungs, filling them to capacity. I don't hear this kind of gasp from my wife often. Usually, only when she's truly afraid, like during a jump scare in a movie. Or one time when she turned her back on our son for literally a second, and he was down by the mailbox inches from the road. I hear rustling of sheets, and the line goes dead. Of course, now I'm absolutely terrified myself, so I immediately call back. It goes to voicemail, so I call again. I call again and again with no answer. Finally, after about 4 minutes, she calls me. I tell you that 4 minutes felt like 40 years. "Hey, what's happening?" I ask. She's absolutely hysterical and crying. I can't understand a word she says. "Stop. Slow down for just a second," I say. She slows down enough to explain they are in the car and driving to her parents. She looked at the camera, and when she saw what was on it, she got up and grabbed our son and rushed downstairs and out the door. Didn't even close the garage. "Don't worry about it," I said. "I'll drive by when I get off and close it." We live in a generally safe neighborhood, so I'm not too concerned the door is up. "You will not go in there," she says. "Hell no," I return. "Why are we on the camera?" she asked. "Is it a recording?" "I don't know. I'm gonna keep watching it and see if there's anything there that I can tell. Do our code words with Buddy. We have code words because we're nerds. We've seen too many pod people in imposter movies, so we decided a long time ago to make code words with each other to be able to tell if one of us was an imposter. We have a couple code words, but we also have a 3-sentence story we recite together, each saying a different part alternately of each other. I hear her on her phone saying the things we taught our son. He giggles as he says them. He does this every time we practice, since he thinks they're a joke and doesn't have any idea of the real meaning. We're both convinced he's our son. My wife says our part, and I'm convinced she's her. We made up these words as a complete joke to ourselves. I never once in my life ever imagined we'd actually need them. She got to her parents safely, and it was hard to hang up. I told her we'll figure it out in the morning. Hopefully just a glitch. She said she didn't think it was a glitch. When she was running out, she had to run by our son's room, and the door was open. There was a little flashing light on the back of the camera that indicates it's connected to the internet. It gives off just enough light that when she ran by, she thought she saw, out of the corner of her eye, a shadowy outline of what could have been an adult sitting on her son's bed. It sent chills down my spine to think about. Knowing that they were safe and out of the house is the only thing that kept me at work that night. It was a long 4 hours, but I kept checking the camera every chance I got. Sure enough, they were still sitting on the bed staring up the camera with emotionless gazes. I studied them to see if I could see any pattern from their breathing to their blinking. Their breathing was steady and looked normal. It was their blinking that would tell me if this was just some kind of bizarre, time-looped freak accident video or not. I intently stare at my phone and count the seconds between each blink, telling myself if this is a loop, then their blinks should be even and occur at the same time each time. There was no pattern to their blinking. It was erratic and random, just as a person blinking should be. The passing hours are what finally sealed the deal that this was not a weird loop video of some kind. My son's window is visible on camera, and I can see on camera that it is getting lighter outside his room. His curtains keep out just enough light to prevent the camera from exiting night vision, but lets in just enough to be able to tell the sun is rising. I try to figure out what the hell I'm going to do before I leave work. Calling the police comes to mind, but I talk myself out of it. First of all, what am I supposed to say? Someone is in my house that looks like my wife but isn't. Worse yet, what if they are entities of some kind, and the police do go over and it kills them or something? I decide to tell my coworker about it. He's a firm believer in the paranormal and might have a suggestion. I show him the video and tell him the story. His initial response was, "That's creepy as hell." Doesn't help much. But he says he wants to go over and check it out. He says we both should to see if not my wife will try and act like my wife. I tell him absolutely not, and he says we should at least go to the house even if we don't go in. I agree on that since I wanted to close the garage. We got to my house and walked around the perimeter first. Not sure what we wanted to accomplish by that, but it felt like something we should do. The curtains were all drawn since nobody was there to open them in the morning, so we couldn't see anything. I went to close the garage and suddenly had this overwhelming urge to go inside and investigate. It was like I just had to know what was going on. So in we went. We walked through the kitchen towards the foyer where the stairs are. It's so quiet in our house right now, you could hear a feather drop. Forget the pin. We stopped at the bottom of the stairs and wait a few seconds. I look at the camera again and they're still sitting there. I've never been so scared in my life. My coworker puts his foot on the first step and I suddenly say stop, loudly. Forget this. We're out of here, I tell him. Come on. I start making my way back to the kitchen. We hear a loud creak in the floor from upstairs. It's in my son's room. He has a very loud, creaky board right in the middle of his floor that's almost impossible not to step on. My wife and I have been deciding if we ever wanted to fix it because it will alert us if he's ever up to no good when he's older, trying to sneak out or something. Come on, come on, come on! I yell as I motion for him to move his ass. We're out of this house in about 2 seconds. Out on the street, I check my phone. Now, only not my son was sitting on the bed. Some blank stare. Not my wife was gone. Holy crap, my coworker says. That was stupid as hell of us. Do not tell my wife we went inside. She would be so ungodly mad if she found out what we just did. I use my garage door opener in my car to close the door. Before we leave, I look at the camera again. Not my wife is back on the bed with not my son. both staring blankly up at the camera, blinking every few seconds. That was all about 4 days ago now. Not my wife and not my son are still sitting on the bed staring up at the camera. They haven't moved a millimeter. We obviously haven't gone back to our house. What do we do? For the past month, I've been working at this new place downtown. I sit at a desk all day and enter numbers into an Excel spreadsheet. It is mind-numbing, repetitive, and antisocial, but I love it. I have a spacious cubicle, my own computer, and a chair with lumbar support. Best of all, it is the lax working environment. As long as you meet your quota each day, management takes a hands-off approach. However, there is one rule they rigorously enforce. At the beginning of each workday, every employee is required to gather in the boardroom and eat a popsicle. They offer a simple spread of cherry, grape, and mango. For the diabetic staff members, they have sugar-free alternatives. They taste and feel like normal popsicles, but every time I peel back the wrapper and take the first lick, I feel at my core that something is intrinsically wrong about the whole thing. I don't want it to sound as though I don't like popsicles. I think they are fantastic. They taste good, are super refreshing, and take about 5 minutes to consume. At first, I felt uncomfortable standing in a cramped boardroom with about 24 other people and eating a frozen treat. After a couple weeks, I got used to it. But I still could not shake the feeling that it was an incredibly eccentric workplace policy to make popsicle eating a mandatory part of the job. The only time I really interacted with my manager was during the daily popsicle meetings. He always ensured that I had my name checked off on the sign-in sheet. He collected our wrappers in an outstretched garbage bag. This has been the routine every single morning since I started, until yesterday. I was running late and I missed the popsicle meeting. I was hoping that if I snuck in, I could avoid an awkward interrogation by the manager. I darted out of the elevator as soon as it opened, and I ducked my head down so no one would see me enter. Ahead of me, the office was filled with chaotic milling of over a dozen unfamiliar men. They all wore red doctor scrubs and had surgical masks that obscured their faces. I watched bewildered as they walked in and out of my coworkers' cubicles, dragging behind them trays of unfamiliar equipment. I heard them mumble to each other in an Eastern European language I could not understand. I advanced slowly towards my desk, keeping an eye on the intruders. I glanced into the nearby cubicles. I noticed that none of my coworkers seemed to pay those red-clothed men any attention at all. Completely oblivious, they continued tapping away on their keyboards. I arrived at my cubicle and found that one of the strange men awaited me. He was on his knees tinkering with arcane-looking tools. Sprouting in front of him was something that resembled a waist-high red mushroom. I saw copper piping sticking out of this strange fungus and snake its way into the back of my computer seat. "What the hell is that thing?" I asked. I saw the man in red suddenly bolt alert. He stopped what he was doing and whispered something into his wrist. 5 seconds later, my manager leans into the cubicle. He has a raging grin and holds a wrapped popsicle in his hand. "Hey, guy, we missed you this morning, but don't you worry. I put one aside for you when you came in." He passed it to me and waited expectantly. Thanks?" I said, removing the wrapper and placing the frozen tip to my tongue. "No problem." He watched me lick the popsicle down to the stick before shooting me a pair of finger guns and retreating back to his office. I turned around to examine the weird mushroom behind me. It was gone, along with the man in the red scrubs. I stood up and scanned the office. All the strangers and all of their curious pieces of equipment had vanished. I sat back down onto my computer chair and collected myself. There was no way that all those men could evacuate the office so quickly, especially not with all their tools. I must be going crazy. I loaded up Excel and went to work. I didn't see the men in red scrubs, or the odd mushrooms for the rest of the day. Throughout the day, I could not escape the feeling that I've discovered some forbidden secret. I kept returning to one revelation. All the strangeness disappeared the moment I licked the popsicle. Could there be a connection? Maybe there's some medicinal ingredient in the popsicles that's messing with my brain chemistry. But why would my employer do that? I came up with a few possible explanations. First, maybe the company is drugging us with performance-enhancing drugs to improve productivity, sort of like fighter pilots. Since I missed my morning dosage, maybe I was experiencing the symptoms of withdrawal. In that case, the men in red and the giant mushroom were nothing but a visual hallucination. But I never saw anything like that on my popsicle-free weekends. So, there goes that theory. Another option was that Excel was warping my brain. The men in red scrubs would be an expression of neurological damage. The best explanation was that maybe the popsicles prevented me from seeing something. Instead of blocking out pain, they inhibited the brain's ability to process certain images. That would mean that the strangers have always been there, lurking invisibly around us. I haven't seen them until today because I haven't been consistent with my morning licks. No matter the explanation, I vowed I would never eat another popsicle. Unfortunately, that put me in a major dilemma. My job depended upon my consumption of the frozen snack. Despite its eccentricities, I really wanted to keep my job. I needed a strategy that I could get past the scrutiny of my manager. So I devised a plan. Just before the popsicle meeting, I would store an unwrapped condom in my cheek. When the time came to consume the popsicle, I would use the condom to act as a barrier between my frozen treat and my mouth. That way, the poison my employer was supplying would not enter my system. Additionally, I would keep a plastic bag in my collar on my shirt that would allow me to spit out the excess liquid. This morning, I tried out my plan. The manager smiled at me and nodded as I entered the boardroom. I already had the condom in my mouth. I picked up a cherry-flavored popsicle and retreated to my corner. This was the moment of truth. I unwrapped the popsicle, tongued my mouth condom into position, and slowly slid the frozen treat into the rubber sheath, and started choking uncontrollably. The part of the condom dipped past the back of my throat, triggering my highly sensitive gag reflex. I realized too late that I should have taken this weakness into consideration before enacting this plan. Everyone in the boardroom stared at the spectacle. I coughed so hard my eyes watered. I gave up and noisily regurgitated the condom-wrapped popsicle into my hand. Absolute silence followed. I felt someone behind me breathe heavily into my ear. I knew it was one of the men in the red scrubs. I turned around and no one was there. Moments later, the manager took me into his office. The HR rep followed shortly after. They terminated my employment. Apparently, since I was still in my probationary period, they had no problem releasing me. It seems they have gotten the impression that I have a perverse sense of humor. They said my behavior was unbecoming in a professional environment. They said the popsicle meetings were meant to be a cheap and effective way to engender office-wide camaraderie. They emphasized it was not an opportunity for a badly timed fellatio joke. I mentioned the men in red and the tubes and the mushrooms. The manager said, they aren't really a problem as long as you eat your popsicles. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And also, big thanks to my patrons. And if you want to support me, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Thank you so much, and have beautiful nightmares.